Picture this. Thursday evening. You're sitting at a long table in a restaurant you can barely afford. Milner's on 4th Street. The kind of place with cloth napkins and a wine list thicker than your mortgage paperwork. Your wife's coworkers are there. 8 of them. Marketing department celebration. She got promoted. You're proud. You spent an hour picking out a shirt that didn't have drywall dust ground into the collar. The server asks if anyone wants to start with drinks. Your wife of 6 years, leans across the table toward her new boss, a woman named Patricia, and says, "Oscar will have water. He makes too little to be so needy." The table laughs. Not all of them, but enough. You sit there holding the menu. The words are swimming. Patricia glances at you with something between pity and amusement. Your wife doesn't look at you at all. She's already moved on, ordering a cocktail, telling a story about something that happened in a meeting you'll never attend. That was my table. My wife. My shirt with the iron collar. My name is Oscar Whitfield, and this is the story of how I lost everything I thought I was, and found the one thing she couldn't take. Stay with me here. Wanda and I met in Winston-Salem 7 years ago. I was working for a general contractor, framing houses on the east side near Wake Forest. She was finishing her marketing degree at Salem College, bartending weekends at a place on Burke Street. I used to come in after 12-hour shifts smelling like sawdust and joint compound. She'd slide me a beer and say, "You look like you built something today." That was enough. That sentence. That's the one that got me. We got married at the courthouse. Her idea, not mine. I would have done the church thing, but she said courthouses were more honest. "No performance," she said. "Just us and a judge." I liked that about her. She seemed like she didn't need the show. Skip came 3 years later. 3 pounds early, loud from the first breath. Named him after her grandfather. I didn't argue. I was too busy crying in the delivery room to care what we called him. I remember holding him under the fluorescent lights, his fingers curled around my pinky, and thinking, I will give this kid everything I never had. Everything. And I did. That became the whole job. Provider. That was the word I built my life around. I poured concrete foundations Monday through Friday, and I poured everything else into that family. New crib, better apartment, then a rental house on Polo Road. Skip's clothes. Wanda's car payment when hers got repossessed. Her student loans when the grace period ended. I didn't mind. I didn't even think about it. Giving was breathing. Here's when things shifted. Wanda got hired at a real marketing firm downtown, Lattimore and Cross. Entry level, but salaried. Benefits. Business cards with her name on them. I was proud. Took her to Giacomo's on Trade Street to celebrate. Ordered a bottle of wine I couldn't pronounce. 6 months later, she made junior account manager. A year after that, account manager. Then the promotion to senior account manager. That dinner at Milner's. Her salary passed mine somewhere around month 14, and I noticed because she started mentioning it. Not directly. In edges. I just think it's funny that I'm paying more into the joint account now. My coworker's husband is a project manager. He makes 6 figures. Have you thought about going back to school? You're smart enough. You just never applied yourself. I let it slide. Providers don't complain about the weather, they build the roof. But something else was changing. Something quieter. She stopped asking about my day. I don't mean she forgot occasionally. I mean she stopped. Completely. I'd come home with scraped knuckles and concrete dust in my hair, and she'd be on the phone with Patricia or typing on her laptop, and I'd stand in the doorway of the kitchen for a full minute before she'd look up. When she did, it was the same look you give a delivery driver. Acknowledgement. Not recognition. I tried talking about it once. A Tuesday night, Skip was asleep. I sat on the edge of our bed. "I feel like you don't hear me anymore," I said. She didn't look up from her phone. "Oscar, I hear you. I just don't always have the bandwidth for your emotional processing." Bandwidth. Like I was a work ticket. Then the boundaries started. Not the healthy kind, the kind with no negotiation. "Don't touch me without asking first," she said one morning. Fine. I respect that. So I asked. Not now. Okay. I asked again the next week. I'm tired. The week after. Why do you keep asking? A month went by. 2 months. I stopped asking. She never noticed. I started reading Skip his bedtime stories longer than I needed to. Goodnight Moon twice. Where the Wild Things Are 3 times. Not because he asked, because after the last page, I'd sit on the floor next to his toddler bed, my back against the wall, and I just didn't go back to our room. First it was once a week. Then 3 times. Then every night. I'd wake up at 5 with a crick in my neck, Skip's hand on my face, and walked to the shower before Wanda's alarm went off. She didn't ask where I slept. Not once. That should have been the thing that woke me up. It wasn't. What woke me up was Curtis Shelby. Curtis lived 2 doors down. Retired early from something in insurance. The kind of guy who always had time. He started coming around in March. The porch railing was loose, and Wanda mentioned it at the mailbox. Curtis showed up Saturday morning with a drill and a level. Fixed it in 40 minutes. Wanda made him lemonade. They sat on the porch while I was at work. The next week, it was the garbage disposal. Then the dryer vent. Then the bathroom faucet, which I'd already told Wanda I'd fix that weekend. She told Curtis first. I came home one Friday to find Curtis in my kitchen, installing a shelf above the microwave. Wanda was leaning on the counter, laughing at something he'd said. Skip was in his high chair, eating Cheerios. Curtis looked up and said, "Hey, Oscar. Wanda said this thing's been driving her nuts." I looked at the shelf. I looked at the drill in his hand, my drill, from my toolbox in the garage. "I was going to do that Saturday," I said. Wanda waved her hand. "You always say that." Curtis actually does things when he says he will. Curtis had the decency to look uncomfortable. But he didn't leave. He finished the shelf. That night, I lay on the floor next to Skip's bed and stared at the ceiling until 3 in the morning. My son's breathing was the only good sound in that house. Here's the thing about being a provider. You define yourself by what you give. So when someone tells you, in front of 8 strangers with cloth napkins, that what you give isn't enough, the silence afterward is louder than anything she said. I didn't decide anything that night. Decisions came later. What happened first was the stairwell. Wednesday, my boss sent me to the Haynes building downtown to measure a space for renovation. 3rd floor. I finished the measurements, walked into the stairwell between the 2nd and 3rd floor, and sat down on the cold concrete step. Put my hard hat between my feet. Stared at the cinder block wall. The fire alarm went off 40 minutes later. I didn't move. People passed me on the stairs. Someone asked if I was okay. I nodded. They kept going. The alarm stopped. Started again 20 minutes later. 2nd drill. I sat through that one too. I wasn't deciding to leave. I was just too tired to stand up. My phone buzzed. "Wanda, can you pick up milk on the way home?" No hello. No question mark on how's your day. Just milk. I picked up the milk. I went home. I read Skip his story. I slept on his floor. Friday morning, I drove past Reynolda Road and pulled into Earl's barber shop on Watown Street. Earl Patterson, 72 years old, been cutting hair since before I was born. The shop was empty. Earl looked at me from his chair by the window, newspaper in his lap. "You don't need a haircut," he said. "No, sir." He nodded toward the 2nd chair. "Sit down, then." I sat. He didn't ask why. He went back to his paper. We sat there for 45 minutes. The only sounds were the ceiling fan and traffic on Watown. When I finally stood up, Earl said, "Same time next week?" "Yeah," I said. "Same time." That became my church. Every Friday. Earl's chair. No questions. No advice. Just a man who understood that sometimes you don't need answers. You need somewhere to sit where nobody's asking you for something. Saturday night. Wanda was going to a work thing, some rooftop event downtown. She spent 2 hours getting ready. Walked through the living room where I was building a block tower with Skip. "Don't wait up," she said. Didn't kiss Skip. Didn't look at me. The door closed. Skip knocked the tower over and laughed. I rebuilt it. He knocked it over again. We did that 17 times. I counted. She came home at 1:30. I was on Skip's floor. I heard her heels on the hallway tile. Heard her pause outside his door. She didn't open it. Sunday morning, Wanda's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I was making Skip's oatmeal. The screen lit up. "Curtis Shelby. Last night was fun. We should do that more often." My hand stopped moving. The oatmeal burned. Skip said, "Daddy, it's smoking." I threw the pot in the sink and turned off the burner. Stood there. Water running over the burnt oats. Just stood there. Was it what it looked like? Maybe not. Maybe Curtis was at the same rooftop event. Maybe it was innocent. But here's what I knew. My wife's neighbor was texting her on Sunday morning about last night, and I was the last person she'd mentioned it to. I didn't confront her. You know why? Because the last time I tried to talk to her about something real, she told me she didn't have the bandwidth. And I believed her, not the words, but the wall behind them. She'd built something I couldn't climb. Monday morning, I called my father. Ernie Whitfield. Wanda kept her maiden name, so Skip has hers too. My dad lives in a trailer outside Moxville, 40 minutes up the road. He picked up on the seventh ring. Dad, I think my marriage is over. Long pause. I heard him light a cigarette. You think or you know? I know. Another pause. Then stop thinking and start moving. You got a boy to take care of. Ernie Whitfield never finished high school. Never read a book on relationships. But he'd been through 2 divorces himself, and the one thing he knew was this: waiting doesn't fix anything. It just gives the other person more time to take what's yours. I called Reba Freed that afternoon. Family attorney, office on West End Boulevard. Her secretary said she could see me Thursday. I said I'd take it. That night, Wanda came home late from work. 9:15. No text. She walked in, put her bag down, looked at me on the couch. Curtis said the back gate needs a new hinge. I looked at her. Really looked. Why is Curtis looking at our back gate? He was just walking by our backyard. She crossed her arms. Don't start, Oscar. He's being neighborly. You should try it sometime instead of moping around the house. I'm not moping. I'm here. I've been here every night. Physically, sure, but you haven't been present in months. You just go through the motions. Dinner, Skip's story, then you disappear into his room like I don't exist. I almost said it. Almost said, you made me not exist first. But I didn't. Because what was the point? She'd already rewritten the story. In her version, I was the one who left. I went to Skip's room. Read him corduroy. Twice. Fell asleep on the floor holding his stuffed bear. Thursday. Reba Freed's office. Small, clean, framed law degree from Campbell. She had reading glasses on a chain and a voice that sounded like she'd heard every version of this story and still took it seriously. Tell me what's happening, Mr. Whitfield. I told her. The dinner comment. The boundaries without negotiation. Curtis. The text message. Sleeping on my kid's floor for 3 months. She took notes on a yellow pad. Has she been physically unfaithful? I don't know. Has she threatened to leave? No. She acts like everything's normal. Like I should be grateful for what I have. Reba set down her pen. In North Carolina, there's a 1-year separation requirement before divorce can be finalized. But we can file for custody and establish residency patterns now. You've been the primary caretaker for your son. Every morning. Every bedtime. Every doctor's visit. Good. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Document everything. Dates, times, who's in the house, who's not. And Mr. Whitfield. Yeah. Stop sleeping on the floor. Get an apartment. Take your son with you legally. I'll draft the paperwork. I sat in my truck in her parking lot for 20 minutes. The radio was on. Some story about a tech CEO's pay deal worth hundreds of millions. I thought about the number on my paycheck. The number on Wanda's. The number that apparently determined how much I was allowed to need from my own wife. I drove to Earl's. It wasn't Friday. He was sweeping up. You look worse than last week, he said. I feel worse. He put the broom down. You eat today? No. He went to the back room. Came out with half a sandwich wrapped in foil. Turkey on white bread. I ate it sitting in the barber chair while Earl cleaned his clippers. My wife thinks I make too little to be needy, I said. Earl stopped cleaning. Looked at me over his glasses. Needy? That what she calls a man who wants his wife to look at him? That's what she calls it. He went back to his clippers. My wife, God rest her, used to say I was too quiet. 38 years. Never figured out that quiet wasn't empty. It was full of things I chose not to say. The next 2 weeks, I did exactly what Reba told me. Monday, I opened a separate bank account. Put my direct deposit into it. Left enough in the joint account to cover Skip's daycare and the mortgage, nothing extra. Tuesday, Wanda noticed. Why is the joint account short? I redirected my paycheck. You what? You said I make too little. So I figured my contribution didn't matter much. Her face went through something I'd never seen. Not anger, confusion. Like a machine processing an input it wasn't designed for. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She didn't answer. She picked up her phone and walked into the bedroom. I heard her talking, couldn't make out the words, but I heard Curtis's name. Wednesday, I packed a bag. Small, enough for a week. Put it in the trunk of my truck. Didn't tell Wanda. Thursday, Reba filed the custody motion. Temporary order requesting primary physical custody based on documented caregiving patterns. I had 3 months of notes. Every night I slept in Skip's room. Every morning I made his breakfast. Every Saturday at the park while Wanda worked or went out. Friday, I went to Earl's. He was cutting a man's hair. I sat in the waiting chair. When the man left, Earl said. You look different today. I feel different. Different how? Like I stopped carrying something. He nodded. About time. Saturday morning, I told Wanda. She was at the kitchen table with her laptop, working on something for Lattimore and Cross. Skip was in his playpen with his trucks. I stood in the doorway. I found an apartment on Reynolda Road. I'm taking Skip with me. My lawyer filed the paperwork yesterday. The laptop screen reflected in her eyes. She didn't close it. You're joking. I'm not. Oscar, you can't just take my son. Our son. And I'm not taking him. I'm establishing residency. I've been his primary caretaker for over a year. My attorney has documentation. Now she closed the laptop. What attorney? Reba Freed. West End Boulevard. You hired a lawyer? Without telling me. You hired a neighbor to replace me. Without telling me. The kitchen went quiet. Skip drove a truck across the playpen floor. The sound of plastic wheels on the mat was the loudest thing in the room. Curtis is a friend, she said. Her voice was different now. Lower. Careful. Curtis texts you on Sunday mornings about Saturday nights. Curtis uses my tools in my kitchen. Curtis knows about our back gate before I do. That's not a friend, Wanda. That's an audition. She stood up. You're being dramatic. I'm being clear. There's a difference. You can't take Skip. I'll fight you. You can. But Reba says the court looks at who actually raises the child. Who does the bedtime stories? Who takes him to the doctor? Who sleeps on his floor every night because his mother stopped making room in the bed? Her mouth opened. Closed. She sat back down. I didn't kick you out of our bed. No. You just made it clear I wasn't welcome. That's quieter. But the result's the same. I picked up Skip from the playpen. He put his arms around my neck. Daddy, truck. We'll bring your trucks, buddy. Wanda didn't move. She sat at the table staring at the closed laptop. I walked out with Skip, the bag from the trunk, and one box of his things. The apartment on Reynolda Road was small, one bedroom, a kitchen the size of a closet. I set up Skip's portable crib in the corner and arranged his trucks on the windowsill. He pointed at each one and named them. Blue truck. Red truck. Daddy truck. Where's mommy truck? He asked. Mommy truck is at the other house, buddy. He thought about that. Okay, he said, and went back to playing. 3 days later, Wanda called. Not texted, called. Her voice was controlled, the way it gets when she's rehearsed something. Oscar, I think we should talk. I've been doing some reflecting. Okay. I realize I may have been dismissive of your emotional needs. I want to work on that. I was standing at the kitchen sink in the apartment, washing Skip's sippy cup. What changed? What do you mean? 3 months of sleeping on your son's floor. You didn't notice. 1 week of an empty house, and now you want to reflect. What changed, Wanda? Silence. Then, that's not fair. It's accurate. Curtis thinks. I don't care what Curtis thinks. Curtis doesn't live in this marriage. Or he shouldn't. She hung up. I finished washing the cup. Dried it. Put it on the counter. My hands were steady. That surprised me. The next Sunday, Wanda showed up at the apartment. Brought cinnamon rolls from Dewey's Bakery, the kind I used to get on Saturday mornings when we were dating. She was wearing the blue dress from our second date. She'd curled her hair. Can I see him? She asked. Of course. He's your son. She came in. Played with Skip on the floor. Built a tower with him. She was good, genuinely good with him. When he laughed, she laughed, and for a moment I saw the woman from Burke Street who used to slide me a beer and say I looked like I built something. Oscar, she said when Skip was napping. I made mistakes. I got caught up in the job, the promotions, the people. I forgot what mattered. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I did. She was sitting on my second-hand couch in that blue dress, and she looked like the woman I married, and Skip was sleeping 10 feet away, and for about 90 seconds I thought, maybe this can work. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Something crossed her face, fast, like a cloud. She turned the phone over. Who's that? Nobody. Work. But I'd seen the screen. Curtis Shelby. Wanda. It's nothing. He was asking about the porch railing. It's Sunday. She looked at me. And I saw it, the calculation. The same look she had at Milner's when she made the joke. She was deciding which version of herself to perform. I should go, she said. She kissed Skip's forehead. Didn't look at me on the way out. I sat on the couch after she left. Skip was still sleeping. The cinnamon rolls were getting cold on the counter. I picked one up, took a bite. It tasted exactly like it used to. That made it worse. Tuesday. Reba called. The temporary custody hearing is in 3 weeks. Judge Hockett, Forsyth County Courthouse. I need you to keep documenting. And Oscar, don't engage with her about the case. Everything through me. I kept documenting. Every pickup from daycare me. Every pediatrician visit me. Every bedtime me. Wanda came for visits twice a week, always on time, always sweet. She brought coloring books. She brought a new stuffed animal shaped like a fire truck. Skip loved it. But she also brought Curtis once. To the park. I found out because Skip said, "Daddy, Mr. Curtis pushed me on the swing." I called Reba. Is that a problem? It's not ideal. She's introducing a third party during a custody evaluation. I'll note it. The hearing came on a Wednesday. Forsyth County Courthouse, 3rd floor. I wore the same shirt I'd ironed for Milner's, the one without drywall dust. Wanda wore a blazer. She had a lawyer too, a man named Garrett from a firm downtown. The courtroom was small. Judge Hockett was a woman in her 60s with short gray hair and reading glasses she never actually put on. She read Reba's filing. She read Garrett's response. She asked questions. "Mr. Whitfield, why did you leave the marital home?" "Because my wife made it clear I wasn't welcome." "Not by asking me to leave, by removing every reason I'd stay." "Can you be more specific?" She stopped speaking to me unless it was about logistics. She set physical boundaries she never relaxed. She invited a neighbor into our home to do things I offered to do. She joked about my income in front of strangers. And when I tried to talk about it, she told me she didn't have the bandwidth. Judge Hockett looked at Wanda. "Mrs. Whitfield." Wanda's lawyer spoke first, talking about co-parenting and shared custody and Wanda's stable income and home environment. It sounded clean. Practiced. Then Judge Hockett asked Wanda directly, "Do you dispute that Mr. Whitfield was the primary nighttime caretaker for your son?" Wanda hesitated. "He chose to sleep in Skip's room. I didn't ask him to, but you didn't ask him to come back either?" Silence. Garrett leaned over and whispered something. Wanda said, "No, I didn't." "And this neighbor, Mr. Shelby, what is your relationship with him?" "He's a friend. A friend who texts you on Sunday mornings. Who accompanies you to park visits during a custody evaluation. Who has a key to your home." "He doesn't have a key." Reba stood. "Your Honor, we have a text exchange between Mrs. Whitfield and Mr. Shelby dated March 14th in which she says, and I quote, 'Just use the one under the mat. I'll be home by 7. The courtroom went quiet. Wanda's face changed. Not anger, something under it. Something raw and frightened and very, very young. Judge Hockett set down the filing. "Mrs. Whitfield, I'm going to be direct. This court's concern is the welfare of your 3-year-old son. What I see is a father who has been the consistent, present caregiver, and a mother who has been, at minimum, distracted by external relationships during a period when her family was falling apart. I'm granting temporary primary custody to Mr. Whitfield." Wanda's hand went to her mouth. Garrett put a hand on her arm. "Skip wasn't there. He was with my father in Moxville for the day. I didn't feel victory. That's what surprised me. I thought I'd feel something. Relief, vindication, even anger. I felt tired. The kind of tired that lives in your bones." Outside the courthouse, Wanda caught me on the steps. "Oscar, please." I stopped. I didn't mean what I said at that dinner. You know that, right? It was a joke. A stupid joke. It wasn't stupid, Wanda. It was honest. You meant every word. You just didn't expect consequences. I'm his mother. You are. And nobody's taking that away. But being a mother means showing up. Not just when it's convenient. Not just when the house feels empty. She was crying now. Real tears, not the kind that come with a script. Her mascara ran. She didn't wipe it. "You make enough," she whispered. "You always made enough." I forgot what enough looked like. I stood there on the courthouse steps in Winston-Salem, the March air still carrying winter, and I looked at the woman I'd given everything to. And I understood something I couldn't have understood a year ago. Giving isn't love. Not by itself. Love is what happens when someone sees what you give and gives something back. And Wanda had stopped seeing me long before I stopped sleeping in our bed. "I know," I said. "That's the part one can't get past." She nodded. She walked to her car. I walked to mine. 2 months later. The apartment on Reynolda Road has a second chair now. A green one I found at the Habitat Restore on University Parkway. Skip's trucks line the windowsill like a parking lot. He goes to Wanda's on weekends. She sold the house. Curtis moved away. I don't know where and I don't ask. Fridays, I still go to Earl's. He doesn't ask how I'm doing anymore. He knows. We sit. Sometimes he tells me about his wife, the quiet one, the one who stayed for 38 years. Sometimes we just listen to the ceiling fan. Skip climbs into the green chair now. It's too big for him. His feet don't touch the ground. He sits there while I'm in the barber chair, and he holds one of his trucks, and he says, "Daddy, are we building something today?" Every day, buddy. Every single day. You know what she said at that dinner? She said I make too little to be so needy. But needy is just what people call a man who loves too much for someone who stopped loving back. I wasn't needy. I was generous. She just couldn't tell the difference. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.